Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video, we'll be discussing my thoughts on episode 7 of the anime series Noragami Aragoto. And in the aftermath of the Bishamon arc, it seems as though we have the Master Manipulator revealing his hand in this episode. And it's penultimately intriguing to me because there's this whole element, Bishamon was summoned to a heavenly meeting with the higher gods of heaven. And it's interesting to find out that some of the lesser gods, the gods without shrines and such like that, can sort of coexist using, stemming off of the names of actual legitimate gods in heaven. We see a snake god, Yato something or other, and of course we have Yato, the god of calamity, who is the main character. We hear that Kafuku is another god amongst these, in this particular realm, who are using a name from another god, or, using an impetus from another god and everything like that. And it's intriguing that because there's this confrontation between Bishamon and these gods of fortune, and she's asking after this one by the name of Ebizu, and Ebizu is not seemingly there, and the guy she's talking to refers to him as, Old Baldy or whatever it is. Like, I never know what Old Baldy's thinking, And that was intriguing because when we see Ebizu in this episode, for all intents and purposes, air quotes, it's this young guy, and like, his whole point, is showing up on Daikoku Kafuku's doorstep looking for Yato, wishing to buy Yukine, even if that means having to share Yukine because of his now not only blessed vessel status, but his standing on a level that makes him sort of Yato's exemplar, because he is such a blessed vessel, because he is Yato's only regalia, if you don't count Noro, which they're constantly calling back to. And that's very suspicious. Here we have this guy, he's not bald, he's not old, and he's, got this whole suitcase full of money that he's ready to hand over to Yato. And Yato, of course, has this strong desire. He is desperate to have a shrine of his own. It's his dream. It's his every waking dream since childhood, since godly childhood, I guess you could say. I didn't know they actually had sort of a time span of growth akin to humanity, and yet they're still somehow different. If you think of the, God pantheon, I'm sure time doesn't exist there the same way it does for us. So the hundreds of years that Bishamon was holding internally, all that, rage against Yato and everything, was probably the blink of an eye, for us. Like what was 500 years was probably like 5 years of just holding this grudge against Yato and feeling so, penultimately enraged and saddened from the loss of her family, what she saw as her children. And it's highly intriguing because as Bishamon is being reprimanded, there's some discussion from the gods about the masked ones. They're talking about someone being a master manipulator down on Earth. Where did Kugaha go off to? His name obviously wasn't Kuga. He's probably returned as a Nora to whoever that instigator was, and it's got to be this guy who's using the name Ebizu, who I don't believe that is his actual name. But we see him sitting amongst these masks, and he's kind of pithy about the idea by the end of the episode that there's no go. He's not going to be able to steal Yukine away from Yato, even under the guise of sharing and becoming, creating a Nora out of Yukine and everything like that. And is this the guy? I'm left wondering that, as I say, Nora was referring to as father, wanting Yato to be brought to him. Well, obviously he just went and looked for Yato on his own, and it's just really, heartening to see. I mean, they kind of skirt over the whole, danger that Hiyori was in with being away from her body for so long. Seems she got there just in the nick of time off screen. You have Yato bothering still chasing her, even though he made this deal with Tenjin about, breaking ties. Well, he's not doing that apparently, and, she still manages to ace her exam that they talked about like 2 episodes back now, without a problem, without even studying for it, being off, held captive by Kuga and Bishamon's realm and all this stuff, and she still aces it. I don't know. But I thought it was really heartening in the end that Yukine has now kind of gone a 180-degree turn on what we saw of him in season 1, and it's been a very much a penultimate learning curve for him to appreciate his position, to see how much he actually does care for Yato and vice versa. Yato does very much care for him as well, and they're willing to go to the nth degree. I mean, of course Yato's tempted. He sees a pile of money. he's like, I'm that much closer to having a shrine of my own, finally. But I'd never sell Yuki. I'd never sell you. And Yuki's even, he's even having this sort of greedy temptation, because this guy who's using the name Ebisu is like, well, you can have 1,000,000 yen every day or every year, whatever it is. I forget exactly, but money, 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 essentially, if you agree to this. And even him, he rises above, using the example of those he's seen and encountered thus far, from Bishamon's regalia to, other scenarios that they've had to deal with, seeing the loyalty or the lack thereof, and he's choosing to rise above. He's choosing to live up to that now exemplar status, to be the gauge by which Yato, the calamity god, this god who is unknown to most of the world, to sort of try to be an example for him, an exemplar and an example. And it's heartening to see how Hiyori, how important she becomes in that equation, because it's not enough for the loyalty between them. Yato still has this childhood dream that he feels like he'll never see realized, of having a shrine. And I gotta admit, I got misty-eyed as he gets misty-eyed when Hiyori brings in this little, what looks like a bird feeder or something like that, but it's a miniature shrine for him. It has his name on it and everything, and he finally releases. He's finally the happiest I think he's been in a long time, genuinely so, moved to tears. And I was moved to tears because here are characters, much as I was left toward the end of season 1, and much as I have felt on again, off again, as we've been going back and forth between focusing on Yuki, Yato, Hiyori, and Bishamon and her plight, to see these characters coming together, there's a very realistic human compassion between them all. And that is their strength in this series. It's entertaining, it's comedic, it's off the wall, it can be action-packed, but at the end of the day, what is the core? What is the foundation? And what keeps me viewing and gets me emotional, both happily and sad and, all these kinds of things, is the heart of these characters, is how they feel about each other, is their confrontations with each other and learning and rebounding off each other, just as we do in everyday life. With whomever you have in your life, you're not always going to agree with your best of friends. Sometimes you're going to argue, sometimes you're going to have to go off on your own, but if it's meant to be, if it's a genuine friendship beyond, transcending that idea of opinion and belief and how we feel and all those kinds of things, you'll always return back to each other. You'll always reunite. And that's what's always at the heart of Yato and Yukine and Hiyori. Hiyori, she was incredulous in the face of Tenjin's agreement that Yato made with him. And of course, she doesn't want to be bothered if she has things that are important to her to do in her human guise and everything like that. She'll spirit away, and that's what was giving Mary chase in this episode. It's all comedic. Leave me alone, Yato, and everything like that. And you have Tenjin kind of like face palming, and he's never going to break ties, is he? He's incorrigible. But I mean, that's what I love. I love that we can reach the heights of suspense and action, heartbreak, the sadness, just tremendous sadness, the pathos of these characters. And at the heart, you can feel a level of affirmation. You can feel good and you can smile because of the heart of these characters. And now that we see this sort of fulfillment of that promise between that trio, on the horizon is set doom and just ominous, foreboding, feelings, and this particular character, Ebisu, using that name Ebisu, I don't know if this is, again, really that character's name or not, but talking of the masked ones, someone being a master manipulator, using these phantoms and scourges, putting masks on them to its own ends, and Noras and all this kind of stuff, it just has havoc on the horizon, just on that precipice that we're heading toward, and it's all kinds of exciting. It's all kinds of intriguing. And so yeah, and I also have to give a shout out of thanks to the viewer who commented on my last video telling me to check out the second OVA from season 1. I'd never actually seen either of the two OVAs that they produced after season 1, and I took a look at both of them, but the second one being somewhat a comedic follow-up to that relationship question between Bishamon and Yato. Were they going to be sort of benevolent? Was it still going to be antagonistic? And I don't know where that actually OVA falls within the time frame of like this episode, if it's set after this yet, or if it was sometime during this that happened, the events of that particular OVA. But it was a really kooky, enjoyable watch, and even down to the almost kiss between Bishamon and Yato, and I'll leave it there. Go check it out if you haven't seen it. But yeah, another mad enjoyable episode, and it just ramps up my excitement to see where this is going to go. Now that we seem to have revealed to us the next big bad, and he's that much more seeming malevolent than Kugaha was. To know that this guy, you know, Kugaha probably exists as an underling to this guy, if it is him in fact, unless there's an even bigger big bad yet to come. It has me, you know, just goosebumped out, and I'm like, I can't wait to see where we go from here. So I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below what you thought of episode 7 of Noragami Aragoto. If you've seen it, if you enjoyed it as much as I did. If not, why not? Let me know in the comments below. Love having a conversation. Our POVs can disagree. Just love having that talk back and forth about great shows like this. And yeah, otherwise that'll be pretty much it for me on this. Hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.